Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulih al-Nabi al-Kareem. Amma ba. So as I was saying, Surah Rahman, as you can see here, is a Makki surah. A Makki surah does not mean a surah that was revealed in Makkah. And Madani surah, commonly we understand that every Madani surah is a surah that was revealed in Medina. However, the reality is, any surah that was revealed before the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Makkah, migrated to Medina, is called Makki. So that means even in Hajjat al-Wada, when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came back for Hajj, that surah was still known as Madani because it was revealed after migration. This is the relied upon opinion of what a Makki and a Madani surah is. It's important to know it's a Makki surah. Why? Who's in Makkah? When the Prophet of Allah is in Makkah, who's he talking to? He's not talking to hypocrites. He's not talking to the people of the book. He's talking to his family members. And we'll come back to why this is important to know that this is Makki. Second point to mention is that this surah has about 78 verses. And 31 of these 78 verses is the most famous repetitive verse of فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So you can say 31 is فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, and about 47 will be the rest of the verses. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, he says in a narration that is somewhat da'if, that لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَرُوسٌ وَعَرُوسُ الْقُرْآنِ Surah Rahmaan. The word arus, urus in Arabic, means the bride when she gets ready for a wedding. The bride, puts on a lot of makeup, beautifies herself for the wedding. Arus, urus. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, he says that everything has an adornment. Everything has something that beautifies it. Muzayyin. And the beautification and the adornment of the Qur'an is Surah Rahman. Out of all the entire Qur'an, Allah is saying the most beautiful surah. The Messenger of Ali radiallahu ta'ala saying the most beautiful surah. It has such beauty to it. You want to see, you want to read, you want to hear the beauty of the Qur'an? It's found in Surah Rahman. A lot of us, we probably like listening to Surah Rahman. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala saying that the urus, the arus, the beautification of the Qur'an is found in Surah Rahman. In Surah Rahman, it starts off with Ar-Rahman. Why? Because the kuffar of Makkah, they used to ask the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Wamar Rahman." In Arabic, ma is used. Wamar Rahman. Yani, what is Ar-Rahman? Oh Muhammad, we've never heard of Ar-Rahman. They heard of Allah, but this attribute of Ar-Rahman, they've never heard of it. So that is why Allah is saying, you want to know who Ar-Rahman is? Ar-Rahman. Now everything that follows it is Ar-Rahman. Everything in its entire surah that follows Ar-Rahman is who Ar-Rahman is. Oh, you guys want to know who Ar-Rahman is? This is who Ar-Rahman is. Allama al-Qur'an, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. This is who Ar-Rahman is. You want to know who Ar-Rahman is? I'm going to write a whole surah explaining to you who and what Ar-Rahman is. So out of disrespect, they said, Wamar Rahman. They should have said in Arabic, man. You don't ask, if I ask who is that, in Arabic, I'll say man huwa. Who is that? We don't say ma huwa. Ma huwa in Arabic means what. So they didn't say man Rahman. They didn't say who is Ar-Rahman. They said, what is this thing that you keep calling Ar-Rahman? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah is explaining Ar-Rahman. You find the description of Jannah here. You find the description to an extent of Jahannam in the surah too. This verse was revealed at a time that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was with the Jannah. And the Prophet mentions this. He said, I recited this surah to the Jannah. لَقَدْ قَرَأْتُهَا عَلَى الْجِنِّ لَيْلَةَ الْجِنِّ. I recited this surah of Surah Ar-Rahman to the Jannah. فَكَانُوا أَحْسَنَ مَرْدُودًا مِنْكُمْ كُنْتَكْ. And they gave the best response. Every time I said, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, they gave it an amazing response. Meaning their response was better than the response you gave. Oh, human beings, their response was beautiful. Every time فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ was mentioned, the Jannat would respond, لَا بِشَيْءٍ مِّن نِعِمِكَ رَبَّنَا نُكَذِّبُ فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ. Oh Allah, there isn't a blessing of yours that we reject. There isn't a blessing of yours that we reject. All praise belongs to you. We don't reject any blessing, Ya Allah. So every time Allah is asking a question, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, which one of my favors are you going to deny? Our response should be, oh Allah, all your favors, we don't deny any of them. فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ, all praise belongs to you. So every time you hear فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, inshallah, I remind you that this is the response we should give. Oh Allah, we don't reject anything. We don't reject any of your blessings, Ya Allah. فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ, all praise belongs to you. So this verse, this surah is revealed to the Jannah. Now I want to go back to the fact that was revealed to the Makkans. And what is that? It's revealed to the Makkans, and what were the Makkans doing? They rejected the Prophet of Allah. They rejected everything. So we have to understand who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing. These are people that are rejecting everything the Prophet of Allah brings. Before Surah Rahman is what? Surah Al-Qamar. What's in Surah Al-Qamar? The splitting of the moon. The famous poem, Bi-Isharati, the Prophet of Allah split the moon with his finger. That was a sign, that was a miracle, but they rejected it. Every miracle the Prophet of Allah would bring, they would reject it. So he's talking to a group of people, a town, a nation, a city that rejects everything that the Prophet brings. So now when you read these verses, think about it from a perspective of people that are rejecting everything. They're rejecting everything. Now you, as us in this era, how many blessings of Allah are presented to us that we might unknowingly and indirectly be rejecting? Without realizing, we're rejecting the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we mentioned before, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if you were to try to count my blessings, you would never be able to do so. Which is an indirect way of saying, if you were to try to count the blessings I didn't give you, you'd be able to count them. So even though Allah is going to mention specific blessings in this surah, every individual needs to think about their own blessings and ask themselves about every blessing. Every blessing Allah is going to mention. Okay, مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. Now think about your own blessings. Think about your own blessings and ask yourself, do I actually value these blessings that Allah has given me? Allah has given me an infinite amount of blessing. Am I giving it due diligence or am I rejecting it? Am I rejecting it knowingly or unknowingly? Whatever I'm doing, I must fix. And the verse, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, will be repeated many times. Mufti Samir Wahid, he says that every time it's mentioned, it's referring to a new subject. So whatever is mentioned, it's referring to this now. Okay, مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. Okay, فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. Do you reject these miracles? رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. So every time فبأي آلاء is mentioned, a new subject is being addressed. So it's not repetitive, it's not irrelevant, you can say. So let's start the first verse. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ar-Rahman. Allah starts off the first verse with Ar-Rahman. And Tafseer of Surah Rahmaan points out such a beautiful point. If you look at Ar-Rahman, if you look at it right now, it's Alif, Lam, Ra, Ha, Mim, Nun. Allama Qurtubi rahimahullah, he points out that Ar-Rahman is actually a compound, a majmu' of 3 surahs. The beginning of 3 surahs. And Tarawih prayers you might have heard already. Alif Lam Ra. We have Alif Lam Ra. Ar. Hamim. Tanzilul Kitab min Allah ila Azizul Hakim. Hamim. So Hamim. Then, which are reading the 29 juz, Noon. So Ar-Rahman is a compound, it's joining 3 surahs together. The title of Ar-Rahman is joining 3 surahs together. Some of the Mufassirin have gone as far as to say that when you see, generally, these are called huruf muqatta'at. Yani, we don't know what alif lam mim means. We don't know what hamim means. We don't know what noon means. We don't know what alif lam mim sad means. Some of mufassirin have gone to say that alif lam ra, hamim, and noon are actually putting together ar-Rahman. They're just in separate verses. So it's just pointing out that this surah, to an extent, has Allah's rahmah in it. Hamim has Allah's rahmah in it. Noon has Allah's rahmah in it. So it started off with Ar-Rahman. So if I were to start off a title and I call it Samir, for example, everything that follows is referring back to Samir. It's referring to me, or your own name. Anything that follows it is referring to Allah. So it's like a colon, Samir colon, and then everything follows. Ar-Rahman colon. Everything that follows it is Ar-Rahman. So every verse we think of, every verse that we read goes back to Ar-Rahman. Allah gave me this through His rahmah. يخرج منهم اللؤلؤ والمرجان هل جزاء الإحسان يعني كالإحسان يعني everything Ar-Rahman. My Allah did it. My Allah did it. My Allah did it. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك. Okay, Ar-Rahman, Al-Rahman. Back to Allah. سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان الرحمن. يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا. Everything goes back to our minds in this entire surah, goes back to Ar-Rahman. Now, what is Ar-Rahman? Generally, when we explain the difference between Ar-Rahman and Rahim, there's a famous quote in Arabic: Rahmanun fid dunya wa Rahimun fil akhirah. Rahman is the rahmah and the mercy and the compassion we find in this dunya. Ar-Rahim is for akhirah. What does that mean? That means the rahmah that we are given in akhirah is only for the believers. It's not for the non-Muslims. But Ar-Rahman and the rahmah and the compassion and the mercy you find in this dunya is from Ar-Rahman. So this Ar-Rahman is not referring to the Rahim or the rahmah or the blessing of Qiyamah. It's literally talking about this dunya. So Allah is saying, I'm Rahman, and this Rahman, this rahmah that you see in this dunya is Ar-Rahman. So this rahmah, this mercy, this compassion that we are addressing in this Qur'an, in this surah, is talking about the mercy in this dunya. So Ar-Rahman. So, like I said, this either to let the infidels know the definition of Ar-Rahman, or that the Qur'an was a gift out of Allah's infinite mercy. So 2 points of why Ar-Rahman were brought. 1 point, to let the infidels know, the non-Muslims know who Ar-Rahman is. You guys ask Wamar Rahman, I'm going to show you who Rahman is. Or Allah is saying that everything that you see is through my rahmah. You don't deserve any of it. You don't deserve any of it. Anything that follows, you don't deserve any of it. It's through my rahmah, my mercy, my bounty, my grace, my fadl. Everything that you see is through because of my rahmah. So what are the first 3 things Allah mentions? And we'll try to mainly concentrate on these 3 verses in today's session, because these 3 verses are extremely important. علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. So I'll translate it in English first. علم القرآن, He taught, علم to teach, He taught the Quran. خلق الإنسان, He created human beings. علمه البيان, He taught you human beings how to express yourself. Even in English, this doesn't make sense. He taught the Quran, then He made the creation, and then He taught you how to express. It doesn't make sense in English. And if you're going to recite Quran, you have to be created first. It should have been Ar-Rahman, خلق الإنسان, علمه البيان, علم القرآن. It should have been reversed. It should have been خلق الإنسان. He created human beings. علمه البيان. He taught you how to express. Bayan, to express whatever's in your heart in whatever manner you can. So it can be sign language, it can be, a baby is expressing the way however they feel in their own manner. But expression of what's in their heart is what bayan means. So it should have been Allah created human beings, He taught you how to express yourself, and now after you learn how to express yourself, He taught you the Quran. I can't teach you Quran without you learning Arabic. There's a whole setup. You learn Arabic, then you learn Quran. But Allah is reversing it. Allah is telling us something indirectly. I created you, but first I'm letting you know something more important than your creation. That is the Qur'an. That means the purpose of our existence, Allah tells us the purpose of our existence. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I haven't created you except for my worship. But the guidance and the manual to know how to worship me is through the Quran. That means the purpose of our existence, is the Quran. The manual of our existence is the Quran. That means you exist. If you are alive and you don't have Quran, you do not fulfill your purpose. There's no purpose of your existence. You have been created without a purpose. There's no purpose of you. Allam al-Quran. Allah, that's why Allah brought it first, to let us know. If you don't have Quran, it would be as if you shouldn't have been created. If you don't have Quran, it is as if you should have not been created. Without Quran, there's no hidayah. There's no guidance. There's only misguidance if you don't have Quran. So to indicate the importance of Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I brought Quran first to let you know that your existence isn't even more important than the Quran. Without Quran, you're useless. You're like a dead body. So even though it doesn't make sense, but there's a maqsad, there's a reason why there's a beauty in the Quran of why He brought Allama al-Quran first. Point one, Allah brought Quran first to let us know that without it, we shouldn't exist. There's no purpose to our existence, number one. Number two, Allah saying, out of all my rahmah, out of all my favors, out of all my blessings, the greatest blessing that I have given you is Al-Quran. The greatest, out of all the blessings, out of all the miracles the Prophet of Allah ﷺ was given, the greatest and the best was what? Al-Quran. So Allah is saying, out of all my blessings, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. You say you don't reject. You say you don't reject any of my blessings. But the most important blessing was what? Al-Quran. Did you give it its due right? Did you give Quran its haqq? If you didn't, then you're a liar. Then you have rejected my blessings. Because see, if we're going to look at blessings, we're going to look at the most important blessing. And Allah is saying, the most important blessing that I have given you is Al-Quran. And even this Quran I gave through my rahmah. I gave through my mercy. I didn't have to give it to you. But I gave it to you because I love you. And I want to shower my rahmah and compassion and mercy. So point two. Number one was, Allah is telling us our existence. We cannot have, our existence has no purpose without Quran. Number two, it is the greatest favor, the greatest blessing. Out of all the blessings I gave you, Quran is the greatest. Third point. What word did Allah use? And throughout the Quran we hear, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil. Allah revealed the Quran. Right? He revealed the Quran, He gave it to us. So if I reveal something, I give it to you and that's it, it's done. In this surah, Allah is saying, Allama al-Quran. I taught you the Quran. Allama in Arabic is coming from a verb called taf'eel. Allama yu'allimu ta'aleem. We hear the word ta'aleem a lot. Ta'aleem after Asr, when we have ta'aleem after Salah. Ta'aleem, what does ta'aleem mean? To teach. Right? But ta'aleem in this verb form means to be repetitive. We know in Surah Al-Fatiha we end with غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. What ad-dallin means to be what? Misguided. Then if you come to Surah Al-Fil, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ. Allah didn't use dallin in this sense. He used tadleel. What does tadleel mean? I misguided you. But because the verb form of tadleel was used, it means I misguided you over and over. So Abraha, who came to attack the Kaaba, Allah is saying, I misguided him so many times. So this verb form of taf'eel or ta'aleem means to happen over and over. What is Allah trying to tell us? Allama al-Quran. I taught you the Quran. I am the muallim of Quran. Allah is the teacher of Quran. But when you teach something, you don't just learn it right now. You know, so our students sat in tafsir class, they learned tafsir, no, they didn't. Something that is taught over and over and over and over and over again. Allah is telling us something. Allama al-Qur'an. You have to study it over and over and over again. You can't just sit in one class, one session, and you know the whole Tafseer of Surah Rahmaan. You have to repeat it over and over again. And anyone who studies Qur'an, teaches Qur'an, will tell you every time they teach it, they learn something new. So Allah is telling us something. Third point from just Allama al-Qur'an. That if you want to study Qur'an, you have to study it over and over. It has to be over and over and over and over. It can't be once. You know, I read the Qur'an once. I know everything about the Qur'an now. I read the translation, and I came up with my own opinions now. SubhanAllah. Allah is saying, Allama al-Qur'an, ta'lim al-Qur'an. Allah is saying you need to learn Qur'an over and over and over and over again. And you're telling me I learned it once and that's it? So the third point. The fourth point. The word Qur'an is used. What does Qur'an mean? You know, in the first verse that was revealed is what? Iqra. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Iqra. What does Iqra mean? To read. What does Qara'a mean? To recite. In Arabic, Qara'a, that one man recited. What is Qara'a? Qur'an. Qur'an is on what we call a sifat al-mubaligh. More emphasis. Qur'an. So Qara'a means to recite. Qur'an, that thing that is recited. So it's not just recited once. It is recited over and over. The verb form that is used is Qur'an. I mean, it is recited over and over and over and over and over again. Allama al-Qur'an. So first, you have to study the Qur'an over and over. And in order to understand it, you can't just study it. You have to recite it over and over. So in this entire verse, Allah is indirectly telling us, in order to understand Qur'an, it starts from the day you can understand to the day you die. It'll never end. Qur'an can be taught, learned over and over and over and over again. Qur'an is one book that can repeat it 1,000,000 times. And I say this with utmost confidence. It can be recited, it can be studied in depth 1,000,000 times, and yet we will still not understand Qur'an. So Rahman, Allama al-Qur'an, Khalaq al-Insan. So these are just a few things we can understand from just Allama al-Qur'an. So I have 4 points, 3 to 4 points just from Allama al-Qur'an. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Khalaq al-Insan. He created human beings. He's letting us know. Now, you want to talk about your rahmah? The second rahmah that I gave you, my mercy, is I created you. I'm the one who created you. Your existence is because of me. Are you rejecting that? So Allah is saying, think about your insan, your human being. You're a human being. Now your body, I created it. Isn't it amazing? Everything about your body and your existence right now. Just think about your existence. The fact you can see, the fact you can hear, the fact that you can smell, the fact that you can eat, the fact you can walk, the fact that you can use your hand, all of this is because I created you. Your existence right now is because I'm the one who initiated your creation. Khadaqa. What does khadaqa mean? You see, we had this word in Arabic that we like to abuse a lot, unfortunately. Bid'ah. Everything's a bid'ah. It's an innovation. Bid'ah, innovation, to create. Bid'ah means to create something from something. If you have an inventor took a bunch of things together and put it together and created it. What does khalaqa mean? Khalaqa means to create something with nothing. Allah didn't need any of it. We are in need of asbab. We are in need of putting this phone together and this table together, get the wood, cut it, we're in carpentry, etc. We are in need of asbab. We are in need of items to put together in order to create and innovate something. Allah is saying, Khalaqa. I created you with nothing. I didn't need anything to create you. Isn't that amazing? I didn't need to make sure I had enough dirt, enough clay to create you. I mean, I didn't need to make sure I put enough blood in your body and created the most perfect veins of the heart so your body could work. Khalaq al-insan. I created you from nothing. I said kun fayakun. I said be and it became. So Khalaq al-insan, Allah is telling us the second favor, that I'm the one who created you. Then on top of that, Allamahul bayan, I taught you how to express yourself. The forms of expression, it's so amazing. Right? In Surah Ar-Rum we read that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, from amongst you can find my signs in languages. How many languages are there? I'm from a clan or a group of people we call Memon. I can't speak it. But there's different dialects of Memni. And some Mimans can't understand other Mimans, even though it's the same language, but the dialect, the tone is just so different. In English, we have English. Go to Britain, right? In America, we love British accent, right? We love these British accent. They sound so amazing, classical, right? And then you have Australia, and then Australians won't understand anything we say. Right? I remember about 7, 8 years ago, I took an Umrah group, and I had someone from Trinidad. I swear to God, I didn't understand a thing he said. And I asked him, what language are you speaking? He said, English. I didn't understand a word he said. Just listen to Trinidadian English. Just one language. Allah gave so many dialects that you can't even understand one another. Arabic. You have the Egyptian dialect, you have the Saudi dialect, you have the Yemeni dialect, you have these Arabs can't understand Arab sometimes. Allamahul bayan. Every language, any form of expression you can think of, that's how many languages Allah created. Sign language. How does a baby express itself? Right? How do a person who's blind, how do they express themselves? Right? When we're angry, how do we express ourselves? When we're sad, how do we express ourselves? When we're happy, how do we express ourselves? When we're cheerful, how do we Allamahul bayan. Every form of expression, I taught it. And everyone is unique in their own sense. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, Ar-Rahman, out of all my Rahman, my mercy, the first most important one was Al-Qur'an. The second thing, you don't have to go far. Allah is saying you don't have to go far. You don't need to look at the dunya right now. Even though the verses are coming. You don't need to go look at the sun. You don't need to go look at the moon. You don't need to look at you just look at yourself. Allah is not even talking about any external things yet. Allah is just talking about right from the get-go. Just look at your whole body. Just look at the way you have to express yourself and how many languages out there. And that in itself is to answer your question of فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those people who give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the due importance that is needed for all of the favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to shower His rahmah upon us, continue to shower us from His infinite blessings and His favors. Inshallah, just to clarify, I know that I said there's 78 verses. We won't be doing 4 verses a day. We will finish, inshallah, by Friday, so don't have any fear. We will finish, but just the beginning was more important. This is why we had to go a little bit more detail into the first 4 verses. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. We won't have questions in these sessions because it's too close to our own iftar time. But if you have any questions, you can either email me or text me, and I'll try to answer it whenever I can. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.